many things affect your life as much as slow traffic and bad weather? Listen tomorrow morning for Traffic and Weather Together every 10 minutes on the 9s on KSL News Radio.
Welcome back into Cougar Nation here on KSL News Radio. Mitch Harper, Matt Baiamonte with you every Monday night, 6 to 7. We're live taking your phone calls on BYU basketball. We also hold it down on Saturdays, Cougar Sports Saturday, noon to 3 here on the legacy home of the Cougars, KSL News Radio. BYU basketball looks to end a 3-game losing streak tomorrow against Oklahoma State. Pre-game at 6, tip-off at 7 here on KSL. And it begs the question, Matt, what does BYU basketball need to do to snap its 3-game losing streak? We're asking Cougar Nation, 801-575-8255 in the text line as well. What say you? What do you think they need to do?
Oh my goodness, there's so many ways you can go with this because there's a lot of problems right now. There's a lot of things going wrong. But for me, I feel like they got to go back to last year's recipe a little bit. They need to take and make more threes. Now, you can't always control the make part of it, but you can control the taking part of it. And earlier in the year, Mitch, Kevin Young talked about how he wants them to shoot a lot of threes. Like, this team has the green lights. Don't get it twisted, Cougar Nation. Last year's team and this year's team, I think Coach Young wants to play more like last year's team than they're playing. And I think some of that is turnovers, which we touched on. Some of that's just pure execution. We've heard Kevin Young talk about this for weeks now, just not executing the game plan, whether it's that's defensively or offensively. But 9 of 24, they shot 38% from three, Mitch. So get up another 7 or 8 threes. If you go 12 of 32, you win that game. But they're just not taking enough three-point shots. So I want them to take more threes. I want them to mimic last year's team a little bit more. Take more. I think you'll make more. There's good three-point shooters on this team. Guys that are better than they showed against TCU. Trevin Nell, Dawson Baker, they only made one apiece. That's not going to be the norm. But if you're only taking 24 as a team, you can't expect to be shooting 50% from three. The volume's got to increase for me if they want to get out of this losing streak. Now, you go a lot of different ways, but that's something that is very controllable. Just take more three-point shots because I do believe this team has a lot of good and capable three-point shooters.
You bring up three-point shooting. BYU goes 9 of 24 against TCU, as you noted. 5 of 7 for Richie Saunders. The rest of the team, 4 of 17. Richie Saunders playing at an all Big 12 level, 26 in the win over TCU, the loss against TCU, Kevin Young praised Richie Saunders for his play and feels like he's living up to what he envisioned Richie would be as they got him out of the transfer portal.
I mean, he's as talented as any wing in the country. I really believe that. I've been steadfast about my opinion on him. He's made of the right stuff. He can shoot the ball. He competes. He's got to sometimes, compete less and think more on the defensive end, but that's, I think, growth for him. But, yes, it is what I expected, and he's answered the call so far. Now I think the challenge for him, it's different when you're a guy who's, not the number one guy on the scouting report. All of a sudden, you're the key guy. Now, can you still get things done even when they're keying to stop you? And that's a challenge for him, and that's a challenge for me to continue to try to put him in the positions to, get the same types of looks when things are ratcheted up against him.
Matt, I love Richie Saunders. I think he is just so entertaining every single night, but I'll admit I get a little worried when I hear Richie might be the number one guy on a scouting report, because to me, if BYU is going to get to the dance and play in the NCAA tournament and be a threat in the Big 12 race here, which that already is slipping away, being at 3 losses, you need Yegor, you need Cannon Catchings, even Dallin Hall to be atop that scouting report. Do you get a little concerned with that Richie's maybe that number one guy right now?
Absolutely, because that's not his game, and that's okay, because there's a lot of great players in college basketball and in the NBA that make a lot of money and have nice long careers being great role players. Richie is one of the best role players, and in some ways he's more than that. He's shown this year, Mitch, that he can score.
Yep.
But as we also saw at the end of that game, and that was a bang play, him sliding out of bounds, like that was not intentional. Those are the kind of turnovers that you hate, but that wasn't a bad pass. It was just an unfortunate situation, but I don't think that's Richie's game, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Richie's game is exactly what he's doing right now. High energy, get to the rim on some cuts, shoot some open threes. That's Richie's game. To me, the guy that needs to emerge as the go-to guy, it's Dallin Hall. We saw that last year against Kansas, and that doesn't mean he always has to score. But Dallin Hall has a great ability to finish at the rim. He can get to the rim. He's creative around the rim, passing it off to Keita and Foose. He's good at corner passes to get guys looks in the corner. To me, at the end of games, until Yegor plays better, it's got to run through Dallin Hall. Just end of story. That guy's experienced. He's done it before. He's had numerous games in his career that he has won, going back to his freshman year at the beginning of his career, getting to the rim and having that game where I can't even remember, Bo Diddley Tech, I don't remember who it was. But this guy has shown an ability to make plays at the end of games. I want it to be Dallin Hall. I don't think it can be Richie. And that's not because Richie's not capable. I just think Richie is better cast in a different role.
And I think Richie, eventually might have a chance, with another year at BYU, might have a chance to be an NBA guy. I really believe that. I think Richie's becoming a special player. I get a little bit worried, though, at the thought of maybe even Dallin Hall being potentially the number one guy, too. Because,
who's it going to be?
Because to me, Matt, I think we already know what the veteran BYU team can do, and they're good. They're solid. They're competitive. They're going to be a tough out every night in the Big 12. But to me, that untapped potential has to be realized with these young guns and Demon and Catchings.
They're not ready, Mitch. We've seen it.
Well, they need to be force-fed. I think if you're going to go down, you're going to go down with a bad record no matter what. Go down with the young cats, man, because
they might not even be here. They might be going to the league.
That's okay. That you got to exhaust that, though, man, because I don't want to see, a year from now you go, oh, man, what could they have been if BYU maybe unleashed those guys a little bit more? I think you got to go down swinging with them and
they've been
and
plenty
Catchings.
Unleashed, Mitch. They have been given all the runway.
But
in
against
the world.
who though? BYU's not. I think the element here that we haven't addressed tonight, and we talked about it in other shows, but the non-conference schedule was such a weak slate, and with all the in and out personnel wise with injuries. It just left BYU feeling incomplete. And Kevin Young warned us a few weeks ago that he was concerned that there was going to be a bit of a filling out process for this team in Big 12 play when you want to hit the ground running. He forecasted this. So I'll give Kevin Young credit. Like, he kind of sensed the moment that he was going to have some struggles because coming out of non-conference, he just didn't really know what he had. And I just feel like we still don't truly know what Demon and Catchings are because the opposition that they faced and this whole team faced in non-conference play, which is one of the worst in college basketball. It was a weak non-conference slate, so I just still feel like there's a little bit of an incomplete of what those guys are, and I think there's still a bit of an adjustment period for them with the physicality of the Big 12. I still think you got to go down with those guys.
Hey, I'm not saying bench them. I'm just saying if you're talking about the situation that BYU was in the last two losses, I'm saying in that final minute, run through the vets. Now, if Yegor can get out of the slump and show us his potential and play consistent basketball, sure, I'm fine to run things through him. But the reason I don't think Yegor's ready to be the guy is I don't believe that's the strength of his game right now. I think the strength of his game right now is getting out in the open court and making things happen in the fast break and also doing it in the half court. But I do think his fast break game is a little ahead of his half-court game right now at the college level. I'm just not confident in Yegor at this current moment to deliver in a clutch moment, and that's why I hesitate to say run through the young guys. And Cannon, to me, is still trying to develop that dog mentality. His athleticism is off the charts. It is impressive, but he's a really young kid, Mitch. We need to remember that with Cannon and even Yegor to a certain extent. This is high-pressure, high-level basketball to the likes of which they've never seen. And look, I think college basketball has a lot more stress than high-level European ball. This is a different game altogether, and it's we're out of time. Like, I would love to do what you're doing, but we're just out of time. This team has to start winning games, Mitch.
Kevin Young is keeping that perspective as they go through this tough stretch, and he's trying to, remain positive despite these struggles.
You guys have been covering sports a long time. You know how fragile sports are, right? And I'm not saying this to try to make myself feel better. But you're probably, and this is just the reality of it, you're one turnover less away from beating Ole Miss, who's a really good team, top 25 team. You're probably one made three away from beating Texas Tech at home, who went on and probably should have beat Iowa State, third best team in the country. You're one turnover away from getting a good road win at TCU, and all of a sudden you're 3-1 in the Big 12. You just beat a SEC team in November, right? But we're not. We're on the other side of that.
It's good perspective. We'll talk more BYU basketball, what they need to do to fix their woes right now as they're navigating a 3-game losing streak. Mitch Harper, Matt Baiamonte with you. We're taking your phone calls, 801-575-8255, right here on Cougar Nation on KSL News Radio.